All right. So first we're going to connect with each other, right? Get to know each other a little bit of icebreakers. Think of a fun fact. We're going to talk about possibilities for peace, joy, satisfaction, and greater fulfillment in your life. And then build on the foundations of how do you get there. Okay, so actually, before we move on to the next slide, we're going to connect with each other. All right, so I'm going to give a high level quick about me, and then I would like to go around the room, give your name, maybe a fun fact, and then I'm going to give a little bit more of my story, which will explain how I got here and why I'm here today. So my name's Jackie Giordano. I've lived in the Pittsburgh region my entire life. I have a twin brother. His name's Michael, and he has 3 kids. They live in the Virginia area. And my fun fact is I was the surprise twin. So my mother was giving birth, and surprise, there's another baby in there, and that was me. So that's my fun fact. A little bit more about my story. Okay, so I went to college at W&J, which is in Washington, PA, around here for accounting. And then I was doing mortgages for a few years. And then the market crashed really bad in about 2007, 2008. And then I landed at a company called Crown Castle. They do cell phone towers and fiber optics. And I was there for years and years and years in lots of different roles. Real, corporate-y, doing data accounting. Eventually I was a manager leading people. We were buying up companies. I worked on stuff that had to do with that. And then 2019, my dad came down with lung cancer. And then right around that same time, my mom went into the hospital and came out with oxygen. She wasn't doing well. My parents are divorced. Since my brother lives in Virginia, I was taking care of both of them. Neither of them are remarried. And I had my mom living with me for a couple months. I was trying to take care of her. I don't know if any of you have ever taken care of, an elderly person, but it was very difficult for me, one of the hardest times in my life, because she had dementia symptoms, and she thought I was just trying to control her when I was just trying to get her to take her medicine and eat right. And we butted heads my entire life. So eventually she wanted to go back home. So she was with me for a couple months, and I had to be okay with letting her go back home, knowing that I couldn't really take care of her, with me living in one place and her in another. We thought she was okay though, but a couple months later she passed away. So that was October of 19. So that was really, really hard for me. And then COVID hit. And with my dad having cancer, I was being extra careful because I'm a single lady, never been married, no kids. I have 3 cats. So I was working from home, just like COVID isolation. So on top of my grief, and I'm very extroverted. So that was tough for me being at home by myself in my grief. So I fell into like a really, really dark place during COVID. And then come the spring of 21, it was time for all of us to get our vaccines if we wanted to. So I scheduled my vaccine and then did the math, right? Like a couple weeks later, you get your second shot, and then maybe like 10 days later, you're immune. So as soon as I scheduled my vaccine, I scheduled a trip to the beach. I was like, I'm going to the beach. I need to get out of here. Like, I deserve this. I booked a hotel, and that was it. I was like, I'm just going to pack my car and go by myself, and it's going to be awesome. And that's what I did. And while I was at the beach, I had what I now know as a spontaneous spiritual awakening. So I wasn't ever religious or spiritual before that, besides wanting to connect with my mom. Because also I didn't mention my mom's brother suddenly passed away a day and a half after she did. So that was like shocking to all of us too. So, it was hard to grieve for both of them, for the whole family. So yeah, basically, excuse my language, the shit went down in Myrtle Beach. It culminated at the end of that week. I was on the beach for sunrise, just jamming to some music. There was a woman with a cute little dog. I ran up to her. I was like, oh my God, your dog's so cute. And she was like, I saw you yesterday. I knew we were going to talk. She was like, I'm a shaman. I think you're a shaman. I was like, what is that? And we ended up talking for like 3 hours on the beach that morning. I went back to my room, like, what the heck just happened? Like, I shared my whole life story with her. She's like, I see you in a crystal shop and you need some rose quartz. And she described this woman and this man. And so I get back to my room and I was drinking the night before and I was like, what just happened? Like, was that a dream? Like, what is going on? So I got ready and I wanted to hit up this boutique all week. And I'm like, I'm going to go to the boutique. And I'm like, let me just see if there's crystal shops. And there was like a dozen of them. And I picked the one near the boutique that I wanted to go to. And by the way, the shaman lady, it was just a regular lady, like in a t-shirt, probably about a decade younger than me, like not any like indigenous looking person, just another person. So she told me to take deep breaths before I go in the crystal shop. So I go to this crystal shop. I forgot to do that. I walk in, there's a bell. And then I'm like, oh no, I forgot to take deep breaths. So I walk out, it rings again. And then I take my deep breaths. I walk in. At this point, like I couldn't even breathe. This woman starts walking to me and she's exactly what the shaman lady described. And I was just like, oh my God, what's going on? I was like, I don't know what's going on. I met this lady on the beach. You're exactly what she said that I was going to see here. And the woman's like, this is my shop. And then her husband comes out and I'm like, oh my gosh. Shaman lady said I need a rose quartz. So eventually I go over, they had this huge like sphere of rose quartz, a $10,000 sphere. It was like in a crate the size of like an end table, like beside your couch kind of table, huge sphere. And I bent down and touched it and my heart started pounding and I started crying and I ran in the bathroom and I was like, what the hell's going on? And the lady's like, honey, do you need some water? And she sat down and talked to me, and here there was going to be tarot readings the next day, and all these synchronicities started happening. So that was the beginning of when the shit really started going down. I don't know if that woman like activated me or something. So I came home and the next day I felt like there was light beaming out of my chest. And I don't know if you know the movie Coming to America. I hear in my head, let your soul glow. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And probably about a week later, I ended up taking short-term disability from my job because I was like, what the hell's going on? Because a lot of really wild stuff started happening after that. And I was just trying to figure out what's going on. And I knew that I needed to heal, right? Because I was in this deep, dark place, with the grief and the COVID. So I just spent the summer in my backyard reading books and watching YouTube videos about spirituality and healing. I was writing letters to people. I was doing a cognitive behavioral therapy workbook and just trying to figure out what was going on and make myself come to a better place. And that was in 2021. So I went back to work and then I started picking up little crystals here and there along the summer. And then I found crystal wholesale buying. And I realized there was a big difference in wholesale pricing and retail pricing. So I started buying and buying and buying and buying. And boxes were filling my house. By the spring of 22, there were boxes in every single room of my house. I was trying to sell the crystals out of my third bedroom, tripping over everything. And I knew for the longest time that corporate work wasn't for me anymore, that it just wasn't. And eventually, come that spring, I worked through a lot of financial fears, right? Like needing the security of a good job. I had a really good job. I was making really good money, but I knew like it was soul sucking. At one point, I actually told my boss, I said, this job's getting in the way of my spiritual ascension. And he just started laughing. He was like, I don't know what to say. So eventually I had, excuse my language, a shit or get off the pot moment. It was like time, like this was the moment I had to do it. And so I put in my resignation and opened a crystal shop with all of my crystals. So I've been selling the crystals since it's been what year is it? Almost 2 years now. But I believe that my job really is to help people. So when I got home, I dug into shamanism, and it's basically like going into another state of consciousness to have visions and receive information from spirits or whatever. And I was easily having those experiences, and they were some of the most profound experiences of my life. And the first one, I realized that I could, and I could pull myself up out of my darkness. And then I turned around and started pulling other people up out of the darkness into the light. So I feel like that's what my job is. And I've just gained so much information that I've been sharing with people that I've learned to make my life better, to give me more happiness and joy and peace and satisfaction and fulfillment. And Kevin and I are in BNI together, and we have very similar energy. So we've really connected. And I told him that I started doing coaching, one-on-one coaching with people to help them with their mindset. And he's like, why don't you come talk to my team? He's like, I'd love you to talk to my team and share some stuff with them. And so that's why and how I got here. That's my story. Does anyone? Oh, sure. I just wanted you to understand like who I am and how I acquired this knowledge. Always growing. I actually got this tattoo about a year ago. It says grow. I realized that my 4 grandparents, their last names make that. So I thought that was a good way to honor them and remind myself that I'm always growing and trying to improve myself. We're all evolving constantly. And it all starts from within. So that's going to be something that we talk about. There's a lot of topics, so I don't want to get myself sidetracked here. So next is right possibilities for peace, joy, and satisfaction. So I'm actually going to go to the next slide on this, if it'll let me. Okay, so I'm going to throw out a phrase here, and I'd like you all to think about it for a minute. I think it's really powerful. And if you feel comfortable sharing what it means to you or what thoughts to come to mind, then that would be great. So it's 2 sentences. Reprogram your mind, change your life. It's actually towards the latter sections, more of an advanced, but we create our own realities. And right, so today's foundational things, right, and that's actually like kind of level 5, level 6, where we'll really get into the meat of how you do that. But yes, having a positive outlook and keeping your thoughts on what you want as opposed to what you don't want, and finding the joy, finding the things to be grateful for is going to help you level up. I want to paint a picture for you, right? Because like the possibilities of peace, joy, satisfaction, and fulfillment. So imagine a life where you're happy all day long, that anyone could do anything and say anything to you, and you're going to bounce right back to that happy state where you're abundant, you have great relationships, support, you feel love towards others, you feel loved, right? I imagine someone just like skipping along, like Kevin, like la-di-da, nothing can shake me. And that's kind of where I'd like to help everyone get, if you're not already there, because it's possible, through a lot of internal work. When I first met the shaman lady, and I'm still in touch with her, and since then she's revealed to me that we've had past lives together. It's been really wild. But she told me that my first superpower needs to be that I never let anyone or anything shake me. Nothing, nobody. And if you really think about it, that is a superpower, right? Because, I mean, someone could cut you off in traffic or, you know, say something rude or who knows, something that could just set you off. But getting to a place where it doesn't is just, I mean, for me, the ultimate goal and success in life is constant inner peace, I believe. And that's what I'd like to hope to get you guys there if you're not already there. All right, so the foundations. So the first foundation is conscious versus subconscious, okay? Living in your conscious mind or your subconscious mind. So conscious mind is stuff you're thinking about. Right now, I'm thinking about what I want to say to you. I'm consciously making sure that the slideshow's going right. I'm consciously trying to make eye contact with all of you. Subconscious is all of our beliefs and experiences that we are suppressing, right? We're like shoving it down inside, but actually that controls a lot of our actions and words and behaviors. So I believe that a lot of people are living in their subconscious, whereas living in your conscious mind can be a lot more powerful and more control in your life. So let me give you an example of subconscious versus conscious. Okay, does everybody drive here? All right, so think about when you're getting in your car. All right, you have to maybe unlock it. You have to lift the door handle. You sit down. You might push your foot on the brake pedal, right, to stick the key in the ignition or push the button. You have to release the parking brake, put it into reverse or drive, check all your mirrors, all those things, right? After you've been driving a while, you don't think about them every single step that you're going to take there. You just do it. So that's an example of subconscious, okay? So moving more into your conscious mind and pulling up those things from your subconscious to deal with them and work through them and change them is one of the most foundational things to getting to a better life. So subconscious versus conscious mind. Okay. Any thoughts? Anyone want to say anything about that?
Does it turn that into a conscious action? You would say, okay, well, today, instead of opening the car door, I'm going to go on the passenger side, open the car door, crawl in through the driver's side. I'm going to turn the turn signal on before I start the car. You know what I'm saying? Like, because now you're consciously making those efforts differently rather than the habit of, I don't know. I'm asking the question, is it comparable, I guess?
Yeah. Or like, all right, I feel bad admitting this, but my mom and I, like I said, we butted heads like my whole life. And with her and like nobody else, you know, if we start getting into it, I could go from 0 to 100 real fast and just start getting really upset with her and expressing that. That was all happening subconsciously, right? Whereas if I was more conscious, I could say, okay, take a deep breath, Jackie, you know, time out. You don't have to react that way. You know, try to do this differently, try to do this better. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Having more control over what you're doing versus just doing it. So like I had an experience when I was young and doing things I shouldn't have been doing, and we were all at this big field party, okay, and there was a lot of fun things there to help people have fun. Okay, we'll just say that. All right. And everybody was taking them, right? And I stood back and looked out, and there was like 100 people all like ping-ponging into each other, it looked like. Now, if that was really happening, I don't know, or if that's just what I saw in my state after having some fun. But literally, it looked like everyone was just ping-ponging off each other. And that's what I think of when I think of people going through life on their subconscious. They're just bouncing around, not thinking about what they're doing, just doing. So I think that's a good example too. Does that help?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. And so that all relates to the next topic, which is awareness. right? Cultivating awareness, not just doing, like thinking about it, like a lot of self-awareness. Maybe why do I feel this way? What am I thinking? I've noticed you just think all day long, right? Thoughts are just running through your mind. But if you step back and like, what am I thinking about? Why am I thinking about that? What does that mean? How can I change that around? Having awareness of the people around you, how you affect other people. Maybe what kind of things, right, Isaiah, if you're trying to help people, like how can you help people? What words can you say to uplift them in that moment? But again, a lot of this starts from within. So I'd like you to start thinking about like awareness, self-awareness, awareness of yourself, right? Your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, how you react to things. And there's a reaction or a response, right? So reaction might be more subconscious, whereas a response would be more on the conscious end. You've thought about what you're going to do before you do it. Okay, so cultivating awareness. And next foundational item is living in the present moment, right? So there's the past, there's the future, and there's right now. Some spiritual theorists believe that all we have is right now, which really it is, right? The past is already gone. Who knows what the future is? So having that awareness and presence, they also call that mindfulness, right? So one way to cultivate this is to maybe take a couple minutes and think about all your senses, right? What am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I smelling? What am I tasting? How do I feel? This is really important as we move forward, right? Because I think a lot of suffering comes from living in the past. Like that's where I was when I was in my dark hole. I was in a ton of guilt, like coulda, shoulda, woulda. My mom might still be here. Or people who live in the future probably do a lot of worrying, right? Thinking all these scenarios that could happen and, worried about this and worried about that. And that's anything can happen. You can worry yourself sick, and for what good? I mean, risk management is important, right? Thinking about and preparing for the things that could happen, but worrying about them is not beneficial for you. So living in the right now, which also is going to help with your awareness, right? Because if you're thinking about everything that happened before, then you can't be aware of what's happening right now because your mind's there. Yeah, I mean, that's really all we have is right now. What can I do in this moment? And in a couple seconds, it'll be right now again. Okay. Next topic is lessons and evolution. So I believe, and it's okay if you don't agree with me, I believe that we're here having this life in order to learn and grow and evolve. I respect everyone's beliefs, whether they're the same as mine or not. I'm just going to share with you my beliefs. You do not have to agree with me. I believe that our soul is eternal and that we've lived multiple lives. And I gained this belief after reading the book. It's called Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton. He's a past life regression therapist. And it's basically case study after case study, all these hundreds of people that he's done past life regressions on. And they talk about what happens in between lives, right? So when Jackie Giordano dies, right, then my soul, right, because energy never dies, my light lives on, right? And then what's happening then until I'm born again as another human, or who knows, an alien species. I don't know. I'm not sure what I believe there, but I do believe my soul lives on. And the purpose, a lot of the spiritual folks say that they call it Earth School, right? Because souls are incarnating in all different planets and dimensions. A lot of them are a lot easier and cushier than Earth. My shaman lady calls Earth the ghetto. because it's just hard here, right? But they say that souls decide to come to earth because that's where we can get the most growth, right? So they call it the veil of forgetfulness, right? So we're born, we forget all of our past lives in order to learn and grow, like start from scratch again. Yet our past lives and our past in this life is affecting us now. So reading that book, right, and them talking about we get to choose our next life. They give us some options, right? And it's based on what is our current lesson plan? What are we trying to learn right now? And once I started believing that, that I chose this life. I chose these difficulties. I said to myself, buck up, Jackie, you chose this shit. I'm like, get on with it. Let's go. You wanted this. So for me, that was a big moment of like, okay, you signed up for this. Accepting that, I think, can relieve a lot of suffering. Like I said, nobody needs to agree with me. I'm just sharing my beliefs so you can understand my perspective on it. And you don't need to believe that. I respect everyone's beliefs, and everyone's welcome to have their own. But for me, once I started believing that, then it really was a moment of like, okay, let's get on with it. Okay, the next foundation is self-love. Okay, this is a huge one. I told Kevin I actually almost forgot this one, but yesterday, I think it was, or the day before, my Facebook memories was a post about self-love, and I was like, oh my gosh, how can I forget that? It's like number one, because the situation I was in, I was beating myself up. I shoulda, coulda, woulda done better to help my mom. Even like shame from stuff I did as a teenager started coming up. It was like a deep spiral. And shaman lady told me you need to work on self-love and healing. And I was like, all right, this is what I'm gonna do. And I believe that starting there can transform so much in your life, right? So if I wasn't loving myself as much as I deserved, right? So I was putting up with mistreatment from other people, right? My self-worth and my self-image, my self-esteem was low. And once I started really loving myself more, forgiving myself, right? Because if you think about the person that you love most in this world, right? Maybe a fiance, a wife, a child, a partner, a sibling, a friend, a parent. Think about the person that you love the most in this entire world. You would forgive them for anything, probably. You would always be there for them. You would always build them up. You would comfort them when they need it, right? You have to do that for yourself. Okay. Everything starts within. And when you start loving yourself more, then you start glowing more. Other people see it. It infects them to love themselves more. It's just such a ripple effect. So whatever kind of tactics you can do to appreciate yourself, take care of yourself, whether that's being, going for a nice run, getting outside, however you fill your cup, right? If it's maybe you like to read, maybe a hot bath and a book, maybe you like to dance or sing, maybe taking yourself out on a date. I used to do that. Some of the more unconventional methods that I did to help with my self-love, I don't know, I just made these up. I was like, whatever it takes. So I turned love songs, right? So you hear a love song on the radio, on your phone, whatever. And usually you think about maybe the person you love, I turned love songs into songs from me to me. So think about that. It was pretty powerful. And actually, one of my friends that I told that to couple days later, she texted me. She's like, I'm bawling right now. I was like, girl, let it go. It's okay. Which, side note, I feel that crying is, there's nothing wrong with crying. Anytime I get struck with emotion, I let it flow because it's an amazing release and a good way to move past that feeling, right? Because if you suppress it, then it kind of gets a hold on you. You weren't able to process that and let it go. My other tactic for self-love was, okay, this is really unconventional and you guys might laugh at me. I would like sometimes like caress my face, like as if like, you know, I wanted my partner to or whatever. You know, do this. I would even kiss the back of my hand, like whatever it takes, right? To love yourself more. So those are some of my unconventional tactics. But self-love is so important. So if you're beating yourself up about something, then please work on that. Please work on that because you don't deserve it. Okay? You don't deserve to be keeping yourself in a prison like that. Okay? And lastly is deprogramming. So basically what this is, I feel like all of life, right? The way that we're raised, the way that our parents are, our families, experiences that we had in school, maybe if we're religious, things in our church or in our religious communities, it's all programming. You have to think this. Don't think that. Do this. Don't do that. It's all programming. And when I had my awakening and did my healing, I did a lot of questioning everything. Like, do I need to think this way? No. You know, even programming such as, okay, my mom was a single mother doing her best to raise us, but she struggled. And so I had some, and I'm still working through them, some lack mentality, right? Like there's never enough. And that flowed through to, and it was very subconscious. And it took a while to get there. And actually, it took me several months and a lot of tears to get to the point of quitting my job to become a full-time entrepreneur. That was a lot of deprogramming, right? Like, and I'll get more into that. Like, it had a lot of trusting in a higher power was important for me to be able to let go of my job. But if you think about all the things that you picked up along the way that you can say, wait, no, I don't have to think that way. I don't have to believe that. I can change the way that I look at this. And shifting perspectives is huge that we'll get into in a future time. So again, these are foundations. This is kind of just planting seeds of this is where it starts. So if you start thinking about living more from your conscious mind, cultivating more awareness, living in the present moment, accepting that life is about lessons, loving yourself and questioning things, then that's going to be the start that will help you grow and live a better life, I believe.
And just take one, right, Jack? Like, where you start with just one.
Mm-hmm.
One thing.
Just one.
Just one day. Even if you work on it every day for 100 days, don't worry about it. Just, you know, because then that'll become that habit that we talk about, or that consistency, and then it'll become natural to you. Then it'll become your subconscious, and you just change your a bad subconscious to a good subconscious.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, that. Yeah. They say it's like all right, so I've skied a couple times, but I'm like a danger to my life on skis, so I don't ski anymore. But if you think, right, like people are always going down, or even maybe better, like a dirt bike trail, right? Everybody's going on the same trail. That trail is grooved out, right? And so that's your subconscious just naturally going in that groove. But consciously, you can create new grooves that serve you better. Thank you, everyone, for your engagement this morning. I hope that you found this beneficial, and I look forward to expanding on these topics.